Husker fans, Sam McKewon along with Tom Shatel. Evan Bland will be with us shortly on the Pick Six podcast, where we come to you on a Thursday afternoon, the afternoon after Nebraska basketball loses at Northwestern, and a few days before Caitlin Clark comes to town for Super Bowl Sunday. Iowa and Nebraska and women's basketball. We'll get to that topic at the end, and we'll start with basketball off the top. We'll also hit Matt Rhule's press conference, which I thought was a pretty good one, kind of meaty, a couple of different things in there. We'll also talk recruiting Super Six. Evan and I do that every single year where we submit that, and we'll talk about our Super Six at the time as it comes. Tom, how you doing today? Busy day yesterday. That was a full Husker banquet of stuff on Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, it was a welcome welcome day to have signing day press conference. To me was always about going down the list of every player, and usually there were like 20 or 25 of them, and hearing about them and how great the class was, and for a guy like me, if I was going to write about a player or two, then it was good, but I like this a lot better, where it's the press conferences about spring ball and about the team and kind of updating the staff and players and what they're doing in the off season. And I think people like that more anyway. But by February, we're recruiting's basically over. There might be some guys that kind of fall through the cracks, like Will Hyde did, and that's great. But it's kind of over by now. So I thought it was a good day.
It was, and sometimes Nebraska's basketball season is effectively over by now. By February 8th, we already know they're not going to the tournament. They're in for a long, cold February. In this particular case, Nebraska basketball remains squarely on the NCAA tournament bubble, and I thought they had a chance last night at Northwestern, if they had won that game, to really put themselves in great position, not just to make the thing, but maybe even creep up to a 9 or an 8 or even a 7 if they had beaten Northwestern. They didn't. They didn't really come that close, to be honest with you. They lost 80-68. It was never that close. I mean, Nebraska trailed by double digits for about 25 minutes of the game. It was a real contrast. So, I got a couple TVs. I got the Creighton-Providence game on. Not trying to talk about Creighton here, but that's a hell of a basketball game. And then over here, you got Nebraska-Northwestern. The quality of play was lower, but Nebraska really just didn't show up very well, did they, Tom?
No, and that's the problem. I think Nebraska's still in good shape to make the tournament. Mainly because the bubble is so weak. It's a very soft bubble. Aren't a lot of great teams anywhere in college basketball. There aren't that many good ones. There's some, but it kind of goes game to game. If it was a stronger bubble, Nebraska would be in trouble because of their non-conference schedule. It's really soft. It's bad. Their best win is the K-State win, and K-State's not going to the tournament unless they make an unbelievable rally. They're not going, so that's their best win, and they have a lot of bad wins. Bad wins. I mean, wins that are against bad teams. So.
Right.
And that's okay. I was for that before the season. These guys need to pile up wins and give themselves a chance in the Big Ten. That they did. Now they have to close in the Big Ten. It's every game they have, they're going to be favored in from here on out. They should win all those games, but they probably won't because of who they are. They're just so up and down, so unpredictable, and just the volatility of the play is what gets me, and would worry me a little bit. They just come out of nowhere and just don't play well. They don't do anything well, and the game in Illinois was probably considered a good loss because of how well they played. They took them into overtime, but you know that you got to do that every game. I know it's hard, but you got to do that every game. And to fall so far back and look, you know, we just looked not very good last night. So, you know, I know this is hard to do, but I think the key to this, if the focus on this rest of the season should be playing well. Just play well. Every game, play well. No more of these bad nights. No more where you just get out rebounded and outplayed and you don't look good. And if you do that, the rest will take care of itself. But plus, you know, what good is making the tournament if you're just going to go in there and lose because you don't play well on the road? So start playing well everywhere. And you know, I think a win in Indiana and Ohio State. Problem is none of these games that are left have any, you know, offer any kind of power, any kind of strength that goes with the win.
Right.
There's a lot of, you know, all these teams are at the bottom of they're like 80, you know, Rutgers and Penn State are like 80 and 90 in the net, and Ohio State's down there, Indiana's down there, Michigan's way down there. They're like 100. So you're not going to get credit for all of these wins. You're sure as heck you're going to get penalized if you lose. So it's almost like I always enjoy saying this. It's better to not lose. It's almost better to not lose than it is to win. But same thing. But the point is, the wins don't matter as much as not losing to these teams. So, yeah, it's life on the bubble. It beats not being on the bubble. It's interesting. It drives fans crazy, but I think they're still in good shape, just because there's not a lot of great teams on the bubble, and they beat Purdue and they beat Wisconsin. Although they need Wisconsin to kind of stop losing.
They do. They do. They don't. They have one. If you go by the current net rankings, they have one quad one game left, and that's at Ohio State. Ohio State is 72 in the net rankings, and so any game that you win on the road that's top 75, but everything else is quad two or below. I don't fully understand how the net rankings are put together. You'd be hard pressed to convince me that there are really 73 spots between Michigan State, which is net 24, and Indiana, which is 97. Those teams seem very comparable to me. They both have the same record, incidentally. So sometimes the net rankings are kind of funny. Let me read off the schedule. This is you referenced it, but here's what they have left. Nebraska is 16-8, and they're 6-7. That's where they're at right now. They play Michigan, Penn State, at Indiana, Minnesota at home, at Ohio State, Rutgers at home, and at Michigan. 4 home games, 3 road games. The best that Nebraska can do is 23-8, and man, my math's not great. 13-7. That's the best they could do. That's the best season they could have in the regular season if they won out. Obviously, the worst that they could have is 16-15 and 6-14. I don't think that's probably going to happen. But where do you think it's most likely to land, and how many do you think they got to win? Like, if you had to just kind of, I've heard numbers out there. I've heard 20. I've heard 21. There seem to be some folks that say 22. What do you think?
Well, I mean, there's the thing. Nobody knows. None of the Joe Lenardi's, and everybody's guessing. So if somebody says they know, they don't know. They have no idea. So the only people that know are in that room.
Right.
10 people. You know, based on the schedule, again, you're not going to get forgiveness for losing these games. You're just not. It's going to be held against you because these are not teams that are going to the tournament. So they're not great. Right? Quad 1, quad 2, whatever. Losing to Ohio State's not going to be good. So I would like to see him win 2 of the 3 road games.
Yeah.
I think, and then you gotta sweep everything at home. You can't lose anybody like that at home. Rutgers, Penn State, Michigan, Minnesota. You can't lose any of those home games, I don't think. I mean,
So
you put
you're
yourself in
thinking
serious.
22, 21 or 22.
Well, and then they won 22 in 2018 and they didn't make it. So every
That's
year
right.
is different.
Yeah.
I mean, here's what's going to happen. The 10 people in that room all have laptops. Okay. And they sit there on their laptop and they get all the analytics, but and then they Thursday and Friday night's a big one. They whittle it down. They go through, they it's not the they call it scrubbing and all this stuff. They're basically eliminating the teams on the bubble on those 2 days and finding that they're 68.
Mm.
But by Saturday, they know pretty much who's in. Then they got a seed, and that takes forever. By Sunday morning, it's all done, and they usually go to like 1 or 2 a.m. Saturday night seeding and juggling and trying to figure out which teams are ought to be where. But by Friday night, basically, you know if you're in or not, basically. And so they don't care about the NET ranking. Those don't decide. RPI, Jeff Sagarin, none of those things ever decided it.
So what do they go on?
It's an opinion. It's an opinion. You have 10 people with opinions. It's like a jury in a way. You get all the evidence, but what does the person think? What does the person in charge decide? Well, they look at, okay, yeah, I like your quad ones. I like this, I like that. But are you an NCAA tournament team? If we put you in, are you going to make us look good? Are you going to show up? Do you have a chance to win? Are you playing well enough to be in our tournament? And these guys, they watched the game last night. They watched the game last week. They're watching games every night. They're assigned to watch college basketball nonstop. These people have jobs. They're ADs and so on and so forth. They're assigned to watch games. They watch everybody, and they saw Nebraska's performance last night. Okay, but they watched Sunday as well. They watched them play Illinois. Hey, that's a team that should be in our tournament.
Right.
Last night, boy, I don't know. You can't do that. So they'll all have an impression or opinion of Nebraska in their head, as they do everybody else.
Do you think it's favorable? Like, do you think based on Nebraska's wins over Purdue and Wisconsin and that Kansas State win that it's favorable more than maybe it might have been 5 years ago when Tim Miles' team didn't make it 6 years
I
ago?
don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I wasn't in the room. Nebraska 5 years ago won everything toward the end of the year. They really won a lot of games. They didn't get credit for a lot of the Big Ten wins because the Big Ten wasn't very good. That seems to be the case again this year.
Does.
I think you're playing with fire. If you don't get on a serious run right now, you're okay. You're going up against maybe St. John's, Butler, K-State. I don't know who else in the Big 12 would be on the bubble. I mean, a lot of those teams are probably going to be in. But there might be some in the SEC or the ACC, that are on the bubble. Well, you're putting yourself at risk that they're going to get hot, that they're going to win their conference tournament, that they're going to beat somebody big, and so you got to do the best you can. You got to focus on what you're doing and make sure you look good because everybody's watching, and it's an opinion. They sit down and they vote. They have like 5 teams on the screen. Okay, you got to pick 3 out of the 5, and you just keep whittling it down. Then they goes, okay, here's 3 teams. Now you pick 2, and all the way down to 2 teams. Pick 1, and it's an opinion. They don't have all this stuff on the screen. It's just basically, what do you think of these teams? Do they belong in or not? So, to me, it's about playing well. Do you look like an NCAA tournament team?
So the eye test. I mean, to some degree, like not looking like you know what you're doing out there. And I agree with you that Illinois, I hate saying this about losses, but that was maybe one of the 3 or 4 best games Nebraska played all year was at Illinois. They played great. and they lost, but they played great. For example, if Butler had lost to Creighton 98-97 on Friday, they still would have played one of the best games of their year. They
Mhm.
happened to win the game, so it was their best game, but the same thing. And then Northwestern, I like the way Northwestern's team is built. They've got a star player, they've got two good shooters, and then they've got like five Bill Lambiers. And they're physical and they're tough and they play with elbows. And sometimes Nebraska plays that way and sometimes they don't. And it feels like they play that way at home, but they don't play that way on the road. And I'm not sure why. Most times teams like playing on the road because they're in a hostile atmosphere.
I think winning on the road is so hard that everybody is going to be granted a little bit of leniency there. But you're right, and these guys are basketball people. Most of them are on this committee. They pay attention to how a team's made up, how they play, what do they look like. You know, what kind of identity do they have? Do they play hard? Do they play stupid? Do they play smart? They just make their shots. I mean, they take all this into consideration.
Yeah.
You don't want to put someone in that tournament that's going to make them look bad, and they
Right.
want best teams in there. And so yeah, and frankly, Nebraska just needs to start playing at a high level every game. You know, if Fred Hoiberg was not brought here to go to the tournament, I mean, that's a bunch of poppycock. He was brought here to win the tournament and take him to a higher level. So, you know, going to the tournament, it'll be a big celebration. And then if you go and you don't play well and you lose, it's a big bummer. And so you want to go and want to play well. And so there needs to be a standard in Nebraska basketball of playing well all the time. To me, they have a tournament. They have a team that belongs in the tournament when they're playing well. That's an NCAA tournament team.
Right.
That's a team that can win a game, if you ask me, when they're playing well. Problem is, we don't always see that. And I just, you know, if you and I could figure it out, we'd be the coaches. I was really struck last week by the quotes after the Wisconsin game, where Hoiberg said, you know, after Maryland, we came home, we had 3 physical practices. They really got after it. I really felt like they were prepared. They're, 3 great practices. What do? Wisconsin, they lay an egg. First half, they played terrible. So 3 practices, you think they're ready to go, and then they do that. Then you go on a halftime. You choose them out. We're ready to go. They fall down, they lose. They go from 16 down to 19 down. I mean, so basically, this team doesn't know what it's going to do at any given moment until it just decides, until CJ Wilcher starts hitting a few shots, the crowd gets into it, Sam Hoiberg dives into the stands, and all these things happen and they click. That worries me a little bit about this team, that they're so up and down that the coaching staff can't really control how they're going to play. They just took off on their own. So maybe that's giving them too much credit. But see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Fred's saying,
I mean, yeah.
we did all this stuff, and then they still lay an egg. So they bounce back and they have the great second half, and they followed it up. Illinois. That's what gets me about last night. They followed it up. Okay, they finally turned the corner. They're ready to go. Now I'm right back where I started. I don't know what they're going to do Saturday. I mean, again, they should start winning these games, but they need to start playing well and holding themselves to a higher standard. Because again, you don't just want to make the tournament; you want to go win.
Right. I think it starts with defense, and there's not going to be a game this season where Nebraska gives up 46 in the first half and feels good about its chances to win. I know they gave up 43 or whatever to Wisconsin, but I think it starts there, and then defense travels. If you make shots, great. If you don't, you can always play defense. I thought Nebraska's defense was so. Again, it was on at the same time as Creighton, and the Creighton game was so riveting because it was such good basketball. The Big Ten, you're right. It is down. The teams aren't very good. I think Purdue's good. But Wisconsin's coming back to, and I kind of like watching Illinois too. I watched that on replay because it was my daughter's 16th birthday Sunday, so I had to watch that later. But man, I mean, Illinois got talent too. But those are the two teams, and then after that,
Yeah.
it's just
Well,
not a great.
Northwestern, last night Billy, they're hitting shots, falling into the stands, and going out of bounds, and hitting threes from on top of the roof, and that's kind of what they do. And they were really into it. They were mimicking
They were.
the K-Say, which I found kind of interesting. Are you really that bothered by it? I guess they are, but um, anyway, um, so yeah, they were. But the first part of that game, Nebraska was right in there, right out of the gate. They played okay. They were playing some defense and hit a few shots, and then it just gets away from them, and it's just like they can't stop it. They can't put the brakes on, and so if you're think about this from now, if you're in that committee room watching these games, you watch Nebraska. What are you thinking? You thinking, yeah, it's a tournament team, or yeah, I don't know. I I don't know what they're going to do if we put them in. What are they going to look like? Are they going to get embarrassed? It's all part of the formula.
Yep. If I were one of those people, I think the word I would use is streaky. And I would say Nebraska can beat a lot of different guys on Nebraska's team can beat you, but there's nobody that you can guarantee is going to show up every single night. And that's one of the challenges. Boo Booey shows up every night. Even if he has a bad night, he's still Boo Booey. Nebraska doesn't have that player. I mean, Rick Mask plays well, but last night he didn't play well at all. Casey had 31 on Sunday. He was okay last night. So it's just, you got to have great consistency. We'll see where they go. Let's talk football. Evan is here. How you doing, buddy?
Hey guys, to borrow a Seinfeld reference, I'm not a huge fan of the pop in, but thanks for letting me pop in.
Well, you're welcome. We'll talk baseball preview next week as the Huskers preview go down to, have a big tournament. I know you're working on stuff there for sure, but we'll talk baseball next week. Let's talk football now. Matt Rhule's press conference yesterday. I thought it was good. I thought it was meaty, not too much recruiting. I was a little worried. First 3 or 4 questions, I'm like, we're really not going to do like 13 questions about recruiting, are we? I mean, Keona Wilhite's a good player, but we really don't need to talk like for 7 minutes about him. But it moved on. It moved on to some of the other topics. And man, I thought he had some cool stuff to say. Tom, I was curious, what jumped out to you most about the presser and his comments?
Again, yeah, the stuff about the program, the play calling, the quarterback roster management, just it's a consistent voice, a consistent message that doesn't change. Evan and I talked about it yesterday on my video. The culture has to get ramped up. It's just a natural process. What happened? What did they say? Yesterday's price is not today's price. So, yeah, just things in general. But he kind of laid out the play calling. We'll all be curious about that. I definitely think Dylan Raiola will have a voice, and that voice is going to be Glenn Thomas. So, but again, they'll be meeting every day. They'll all be on the same page. They'll all figure it out. So, but there's so many guys that'll be out for the spring. Again, you won't have a clear picture coming out of the spring, and that's fine. But I think the offensive line needs to be shored up coming out of spring, and the running backs need that whole picture. I think the running game, running back, and offensive line needs to be shored up. I think coming out of spring. So anyway, it just good to talk to the coach and get an update.
What do you think, Evan?
Well, there were a lot of things. If I were to pick one topic that I thought was kind of interesting, I would say it was his thoughts on the quarterback situation and being asked about whether they're going to move forward with 3 like they have, if they're going to look at a 4th. And, that question sort of informs the discussion of, will Nebraska look for somebody out of the portal when it opens up again in late April, or will they stand pat with what they have? And he kind of left the door open to that a little bit, saying if they need to, they will. He talked about 1-year quarterbacks, and that's not something they necessarily want to do. But then, the money line was, we're all in with the guys that we have. And that's Heinrich Harburg and your early enrollee true freshmen that are there now. And so I thought his emphasis on the importance of reps for those guys and making sure they all get as many reps as they need, more reps than they need, kind of erring on that side as opposed to not having enough to go around, was notable to me. And I thought too what he said about how you view a quarterback situation in the transfer portal era was really good. Saying, like, is there even such a thing as like a bad situation anymore? As quickly as things can change with coaching and transfer portal and things like that. So just the doubling down on what they have moving forward, I thought was one of my big takeaways.
Very striking, the comments about why he wanted Glenn Thomas as a quarterback's coach, and also the value of having a specific voice for the quarterbacks. I'm probably going to write about this at some point, although probably not this week. You hear what Matt Rhule said about Marcus Satterfield's personality and what he wants from the position, and you just can't help but think, man, if they had a quarterback coach last year, maybe they don't go 5-7.
Well, he talked about, Satterfield's aggressive personality, and he kind of slipped in that line about, like, sometimes when you're coaching quarterbacks, you need to rein it in a little bit or back it off a little bit. And maybe that aggressive style plays better with the tight ends, with Thomas Fidone and Carter Nelson and everybody else. And so, I mean, yeah, you can, how many examples were there last year of that the offense turns it over, comes off the field, and Matt Rhule is the one talking to the quarterback? Or if it's Satterfield, then he's not looking ahead to the next offensive possession. So just like having that consistent voice as opposed to sort of passing it around and trying to figure out in the moment what's best, it does feel like that's something that's going to lead to better development. And of course, they're going to have talent that they believe in too, but just a different operation on game day than what they've had.
Just one of the things that I observe when I think about what good quarterback play is, and I think we can all three agree with this, it's kind of like what Tom was saying before you get on, that it's not just about winning, but it's about not losing. And in basketball and football, it's not just making plays, it's not giving the other team the ball. And Nebraska did that at a rate that was alarming last year, and I think did so as the season went on cavalierly. I just don't even know how to explain a couple of the turnovers late in the season. The two Jeff Sims turnovers in the Maryland game were mind-boggling to me. They shouldn't. I mean, one of them shouldn't even have happened if he just run the play the way it was supposed to. But the other one was just a ball that was just heaved up into triple coverage on the first play of a subsequent drive. And I just felt like at times some of that's on Smith or Sims for sure, but yeah, I just did not feel like down the stretch, with maybe the exception of the Wisconsin game when I thought everybody was really dialed in, that the quarterback play was anywhere near what it needed to be against Michigan State, against Maryland, and against Iowa. And you just want, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. So I'm not saying that you can go back and rewrite history, but I do feel like they're going to be on more solid ground now with a quarterback's coach. It's kind of working with these guys and talking to them about defense. The thing that I suppose jumped out to me is that line about, and it was culture related, the line about, hey, every other team scores touchdowns on double unders, which was the interception against Maryland. That was him kind of saying, listen, we took it on the chin as coaches for the first year. In this second year, there's going to be a different level of accountability for the players. And I'll be intrigued to see how that goes. I think that my sense all along since the end of last season was missed opportunity, really missed opportunity. Didn't affect recruiting, but missed opportunity to make a bowl game, sense of urgency. And he said it yesterday. There's a sense of urgency in that program. And as it relates to the quarterback conversation, Evan, I have Tom wrote that he's good with 3, and I agree with that. if they're not good with 3 and they don't feel like Dylan Raiola is ready to roll, or Heiner Carberg doesn't make this huge jump, I just think they'll have so much urgency that they'll be like, we got to go out and get another guy, because they cannot afford to have like the first 6 games of the season be a squander. They have an opportunity to go like 5-1 or 6-0 to start the season, and you can't, quarterback play can't keep you from that. So I think the sense of urgency around the program, I felt that yesterday from Rhule. He's just not screwing around, and I appreciated that tone. I think it worked.
Well, that's fun, but at this stage of the game, who are you going to get at quarterback that's
Right.
going to be better than Raiola? I mean, you're basically going to get somebody that's going to be a game manager who's not going to turn it over because Raiola's not ready. Well, I kind of believe that when I see it. I mean, I think they're going to ride with Raiola, and I think it's the coach's job to find out what he can do and let him do those things, and then let him grow from there. Excuse me, while I rub my eye. I thought the interesting line yesterday that was very true, and it's the old X's and O's, Jimmy's and Joe's line. But Rhule was talking about that interception and the play calling at the Maryland game in the end zone, and he basically said, we need a quarterback and a receiver who can make those plays. If they make the plays, you're not worried about the play calling. And he's 100% right. The play calling is overrated. The players are not. They didn't have quarterbacks. Look at the quarterbacks they had last year. They didn't have guys who can make plays. And receivers, they had some young receivers who basically, it was a first-year roster in a lot of ways, a first-year program roster for Nebraska. Everything has been put into place: culture, urgency, the quarterback coach now. Now it's time to bring the players in, and they have. That's the last piece of the puzzle. So, yeah, I think it's all in place. Yeah, I mean, we always worry about, people love to call plays. The whole state is full of offensive coordinators, and the stadium is full of them. They all call better plays than anybody, and but it comes down to players, and you'd be surprised. I mean, you've seen it. It's pretty easy to call plays when you got a quarterback who's going to make the throws.
True.
And you got a guy who's going to make the catch. He's going to run the right route, and if the catch is made, throw is right there. The play calling becomes a beautiful thing then. So I think that's what he was saying yesterday. I can appreciate that.
That's really, I think that'll be interesting to follow, because I get the sense, and I would say I kind of agree with this, that like maybe the biggest critique from year one of the Matt Rhule era was a lot of the in-game decisions, whether that was play calling, whether that was clock management, late in halves or late in games. And so like this notion that changes with better players, maybe that holds true. I just wonder, like, because everyone, and I would say like Matt Rhule handled himself so well in the first year off the field, recruiting. He's genuine. Like everything that had been heard about him is true. I think that was the one thing that a lot of fans would point to and say, but what about late in the half when this happened or when that happened? Is talent the only thing there? I don't know. Maybe it is, but that's a really interesting thing I think to follow in year two.
It's great points from both of you. We're going to dive into the end of half and end of game stuff in the off season as to like exactly some of the things that happened and occurred, and I think there's room to understand everything that Rhule was thinking or Satterfield was thinking. And then there's a couple moments, the Maryland game and the first half against Colorado was the other one, where that's a pretty darn good football game, and maybe there's some things that happened late where it got a little loose, but that's the way that goes. As for quarterbacks that'll be out there, you never know. You just probably won't be a lot of great names out there, but Iowa State's got a kid that got suspended for gambling, and he's probably not going to be the starter. And he was a pretty good player a couple of years ago. So you just never know. Like, you just never know what's going to be available. I don't think they'll probably hit that, but I do agree that with Evan that they left the door open. You just never this roster is, good, but they're always open to doing more things. Evan, let's talk about the Super Six. That came out today. 247 Sports puts that together. We agree to be a part of it. We don't have to. I guess we could have our own, but I think it's kind of cool to
Yeah.
do the whole thing with the media, and you and I have been doing it for many years. And we'll get to our Super Six here in a minute. That we have for 2024. I went back and looked at the previous 5 classes, by the way.
Hmm.
And you're a little ahead of me when it comes to getting these things right. The way I counted it up, you had 19 hits, so 5 times 6 is 30, right?
Yeah.
So, you had 19 out of 30 that we would call hits, somewhat regular starters, contributors. I graded a little harder if you put a guy at number 1 and he was not really ever a number 1 kind of player.
Mhm.
And I had 15, and then I had one more sleeper than you. So I had 3 sleepers right, and you had 2. We both got the sleeper from 22 correct in Malcolm Hartzog. This most recent year, I don't know that it's come to fruition yet.
Right.
You had, you had Marquise Buford as a sleeper, which was okay. Or maybe I did. I can't remember. And this year you had Ja'Cory Barney as a sleeper, which is a little. Did you have Ja'Cory Barney?
Yeah.
Yeah, 4-star sleeper. Okay.
I mean, there's no definition to these things.
Oh, he's a sleeper. Is there anyway?
Hey, when you look at the history of Miami talent recently, that is the definition of sleeper. That's come up to Nebraska.
That's that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, we're going to go over our Super Six here, and we'll do this pretty quickly, and then we'll move on to Caitlin Clarkville. Do you know what yours is, or do you want me to rattle off?
Yeah, I've got it. I've got it. Yeah.
All right. So start with your sleeper.
Ja'Cory Barney. Yeah, intersection of position of need for Nebraska. Obviously, what he did as a high schooler out of Miami, played a lot of different positions, game-changing speed, and I don't know how much you base Sam on like personality stuff, but just I haven't talked to him. He strikes me as a guy who's driven as well, and so like I said, you never know with Miami players coming to Nebraska. It hasn't worked out in the last handful of years, but yeah, just I like his film. I like where he would fit into what Nebraska needs.
My sleeper is Donovan Jones from Omaha North. I try to make it a mid-level 3-star or lower when I go with a sleeper, and I think he's going to be a really nice player at Nebraska. Physically, he's the size, he's athletic. There's a lot of things I like about Donovan Jones as a player. And he's just kind of, he's kind of a cool kid. He's very intentional. And I like that about him. It was close. There's a bunch of Omaha area players that I think are going to be really, really good. But not all of them are what you'd call sleepers. So I put Donovan Jones there. Your number 6 was Micah Mazuka.
Micah Mazuka, probably the most fortuitous portal addition Nebraska's had in the short history of the thing. Comes in at a position where Nebraska has 2 openings at guard. He's been a starter at 2 Power 5 programs. I did cringe a little at that pick when Matt Rhule yesterday said that he has a standard to live up to still. He's maybe a little bit behind what some of the other newcomers are there, but like just his track record and the position of need seems like an obvious choice to me.
I had Grant Bricks at number 6 from Logan Magnolia. He is the highest rated offensive line recruit in the class. He's not my highest offensive lineman, but I think he's going to be a nice player at Nebraska. I think he's probably going to have to gain some weight. You've seen Grant up close. Mm-hmm. And I also think he'll have to get used to an offense that throws the ball more than 5 times a game. Your number 5 is my number 5, Gibson Pyle. Go.
Gibson Pyle, his personality, I think, is a big part of it. His frame, he can obviously grow, into one of those bigger, I think, multi-year starters that Nebraska's looking for. He performed well at the All-American Bowl. And, again, I tend to put more weight on just certain personality bits and drive and intangible sort of things. And I actually never spoke to Gibson in the recruiting process, but just watching how he conducts himself in those two, he strikes me as a guy who could be a multi-year starter when that line change for Nebraska occurs in 25 and beyond.
Agree with all of that. We go to number 4. Mario Buford is my number 4, the younger brother of Marquise Buford. He's a good player and has been a good player for 4 years. I think he got a little forgotten in this process because they signed so many other guys and they got a lot of in-state guys and they got some high-profile players. But I think Mario Buford's going to be a 2 or 3 year starter corner, and he's played at that level down in Texas. He's a younger brother of a kid that's going to hold him accountable. Marquise Buford's not going to let him slide at all. I like Mario Buford. You have Caleb Benning.
Caleb Benning, man, I mean, all he does is make plays for one of the best high school football teams in state history. Two-way guy. Obviously, everyone knows who his dad is, so he's been poured into, and his mom, from elite former athletes since he was young. And he's a local kid. And I think just the further we go into the portal era, the more weight I put on guys who want to be at Nebraska and stay and are playing for something in addition to themselves or bigger than themselves. And so I think he more than proved himself at the high school level. There are a lot of ways that he can, I think, be a factor in the defense moving forward. So I think I was probably about as high on Caleb Benning as anybody in the Super Six this year.
Yes.
And I just think he has that drive, and there are so many ways that he can get on to the field to affect a game.
Our top 3 are basically the same. They're in slightly different order. So I will talk about Dante Dowdell. You'll talk about Carter Nelson, and all 3 of us can maybe talk about Dylan Raylock since he is number 1. I know you did the interview with Dante Dowdell. I've watched a lot of his tape. And one of the things that I really like about him is he is a rumbler. So he's just a downhill guy. He's going to let guys bounce off him. I don't mind that at all. If you get a full head of steam and you're going downhill, you can be a one cut and go guy. He's probably not an outside zone type, but he is a guy that can take an inside zone or a lead or a power play and get downhill. He's got a little bit of speed to him. The thing that Gabe Ervin has is a little bit of shake and bake. So Gabe can make a guy miss and guys can slough off a little bit. But I think Dowdell is really powerful at the line of scrimmage. He has an incredible opportunity this spring. Gabe Ervin's not going to practice, I don't think. He tore his hip. This is a chance for Dowdell to basically come in and earn the starting job, because I don't think you can guarantee that somebody coming off that injury is going to be able to be 100% right away. So Dowdell has an incredible opportunity in front of him. Now to you, Carter Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, Nelson is sort of the embodiment of what Matt Rhule's been talking about for a few months now and longer about the positionless offense. And you can look at where Nelson can line up as a blocking tight end. He's working on that, but also as a pass catcher, you can send him out wide. They've talked about, maybe half jokingly, this idea that he could be a goal line guy and use his 7-foot high jump ability to soar over a pile on a, goal to go from a yard out sort of situation. I'll be curious what his impact is in the first year, just because he was not an early enrollee. He'll join the team this summer. He's still making that transition from 8-man football, but the reason that he had 40 plus offers was because of that athleticism, those measurables that bore out from track. And so, he's another one of those guys too, who has that drive. He obviously is fully committed to his in-state team. And again, just somebody who has so many different ways that he can impact the offense. I think he's an athlete, a little bit different from any Nebraska's had in recent years. And so whether that kind of manifests here this fall or whether that takes a year to really bloom, I just think he's a playmaker for this offense for years to come.
Agreed. Our number 1 is Dylan Raylock. I think he might have been number 1 in every one Super 6. I could be wrong. Somebody might have had Carter Nelson number 1. But Dylan Raylock is number 1. Anybody who wants to have a comment about Dylan certainly can.
Tom?
He speaks for himself. I mean, but I don't get into recruiting like you guys do, so you guys can handle that part. But yeah, I mean, he's I'm anxious to see him play. What else do you want me to say?
No. Just
That's
curious
good.
if you've seen a lot of good quarterbacks in your day,
Right.
and this kid's got
Um,
that level of hype attached to him, and so he's got a lot to live up to.
I mean, I saw him in the Polynesian Bowl. And I really liked the way he handled himself in the pocket, and he stood back there and he was throwing darts, and he's not afraid to make a big throw downfield. Sometimes you have to be able to, yeah, just kind of have no fear and take a shot, and you can't be afraid if it's going to get picked off. You have to hope the receiver have confidence that he's going to make a play. But yeah, he's got all the tools, right? I mean, let's. I'm going to sit back and watch. I enjoyed watching him at the basketball game last week. He was at the Wisconsin game, walking around, talking to people. He seems to enjoy that part of it. That I think he's going to be very public, and he I think I'm not saying he enjoys being the guy, but everything I saw last Thursday night told me he enjoys being the guy. He enjoys being around people, and he's got a presence about him. And he was down in the hallway underneath, walking around, and I said hi to him, and I just was struck that I thought I was looking at his dad. I mean, it looked just like his dad. I thought, wow, that's cool. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to covering him.
I would just add, I mean, he's got sort of the blend of everything that you're looking for. I mean, we can talk about the footwork and the arm talent and how he processes information in real time. But like you blend all that with kind of what Tom's saying, that intangible side. You look at how Nebraska already involved him intimately in their recruiting process. He was directly, he was the direct point of contact for multiple transfer commits who ended up coming here to Nebraska. And, he grew up around professional quarterbacks because of who his dad is. And his dad was a professional athlete. And so like this stage in a lot of ways is not too big for him, the way that it might be for some sort of first generation difference making athletes. So I just think you mix all that together, you got the recipe for an impact guy. I mean, how many times have we talked about Nebraska quarterbacks through the years that maybe had the ability, but couldn't handle the fishbowl, couldn't handle the pressure. And he strikes me as someone who has all the talent, but also is equipped with the other stuff to kind of handle the ups and downs with the reality of being a Nebraska quarterback.
All good stuff. I think he's he's probably a good combination of like a really between a tight guy, a tight athlete, and a loose athlete. Tight, I would say Adrian Martinez was kind of a tight guy. He kind of was. Like as a thrower, he was sort of, kind of tightened up. And Harburg isn't. So he's got a big loopy motion, and Rhule is somewhere in between. He's got really good arm strength. I think he's probably going to benefit from being in a program like this one where they're going to work really hard in the off season, and he's going to have to learn how to get out of the pocket and move side to side and make off platform throws. He's very good in the pocket, but they'll teach him how to do that presumably. And yeah, I think again, if his upside is maximized, he's the best player in the class. Now, maximizing his upside is more up to him than it is up to his coaches, as with anything. Like it's up to the player, so he's got to do it, and he's got to want it, and he's got to be willing to go through that process. And I do think he has a family that'll hold him accountable to that, but the kid's got to do it, and he's got to be the one who gets better. We've all seen great quarterbacks at Nebraska and covered them, and Eric Crouch just got better and better and better, and he wanted to, and that's why he became the player he did. And Zach Taylor was the same way, and so the really good ones, they just don't ever stop developing. They learn new skills, and they get tougher and all the rest. So we'll see what happens there. Let's end with this. PBA Sunday, Caitlin Clark, Iowa women's basketball comes to play Nebraska. This is this is the biggest star in college basketball. I'm not sure when the last time the biggest star in college basketball came to Nebraska, unless you're counting Caitlin Clark. In my mind, I thought of Kevin Durant. And I understand that Zach Edey came here this year. He's not the biggest star in college basketball. Caitlin Clark is. So I thought of Kevin Durant when he played, at Nebraska that one time, or Michael Beasley the one time he played at Nebraska. But there haven't been that many circumstances where I thought, the best player in the sport was here, and she'll be here on Sunday. It'll be pretty cool.
Yeah, she's bigger than Kevin Durant was at Texas. Durant was more of an all-American guy, but National Player of the Year that year. But he was sort of a Texas star, a Big 12 star. Caitlin Clark's a national. And if you want to go outside, over to cross seas, she's probably big over there too. She's on commercials. She's the face of college basketball. And what I love about her is she embraces it. She's out there. She's out there to put on a show. And obviously she wants to win, but there's no game. This is the biggest event at Pinnacle Bank this year. I mean, Creighton game was big, but this one's bigger. And the fact that she loves playing in Nebraska and loves to beat them, loves to put on a show for the fans, and enjoys being the villain, it ramps it up. And she's got the scoring record coming. She's close to that. Now it might happen Sunday. Yeah, it's all set up. But yeah, it's just very cool. All the big events are this year are all happening with women's sports.
Yeah, I'm writing a story right now about that. And yes, so as I was talking about, like, you drive in up the Interstate 180 to and you see off to the left, you see Memorial Stadium, and off to the right, you see Haymarket Park, and up in the, straight ahead, you see PBA. And yep, the biggest events in every single one of those has been women. I mean, the softball team hasn't started yet, but they're going to start today. And it's pretty cool. Like this is one of those years where it feels like, it feels like something's happening in women's sports. And I wasn't able to talk to Caitlin this week. Apparently she had too many interview requests. But I talked to Iowa coach and the Iowa AD and Trev Alberts and Amy Williams. And I think there's just a general agreement that she's on the leading edge of something, and that there's more monetary stuff to come. So that there's more money to be made here. And as a result, these gals will be bigger and bigger stars. It should be really interesting to undertake.
I would just add too, like I keep thinking back to what Michael Jordan said in the 90s when he was just like, every time he was on the road, he was going to play because he knew somebody was going to see him for the first time, and somebody paid a ticket and went out of their way to show up. And it just I feel that sort of thing with Caitlin Clark, where it's just like every time out, she's going to deliver something. You don't know what it's going to be. She's going to do something really cool and make memories for somebody that's there. And so whatever that ends up being at PBA, maybe that's the scoring record, maybe that's just posted another 30 burger on Nebraska. But like she even makes the really impressive seem ho-hum. Like if all she does is score 30 points and everyone's like, oh yeah, okay. Like that's the bar that she's set. And I think there's shades of that with Jordy Ball. There's shades of that certainly with Nebraska volleyball. And it's just, yeah, it's been really amazing to see just that consistent level of greatness to where when you show up on a given day, something cool is going to happen.
Who do we got for the Super Bowl? Who we picking?
I don't know how you pick against the Chiefs, man. I get like you can break it all down, but like they're just kind of the team of destiny at this point. You die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain, and I think that's the Chiefs at this point. People are sort of sick of them, but like I just don't see how you can pick against them. I think they've embraced that role. we could break down the football elements, but they've got Patrick Mahomes, and a defense that's really figured things out. So I as a Broncos fan, it hurts me a little bit, but I think the Chiefs.
Yeah, their toughest game was in Baltimore, and they cruised through that. Our defense is better. I mean, you got Andy Reid with 2 weeks to figure things out with Mahomes. I mean, the Niners have not played great over. They play well enough to win at home, but they're all going to have to play great to win this one. I just don't see it.
Well, you guys root for the Niners. Usually I'm an NFC guy. Rooted against Tom Brady that one year when they beat the Chiefs, but usually I rooted for the NFC teams, so that's what I'll probably do here too. But I think the Chiefs are going to win, and it's going to be coronation for Patrick Mahomes. My wife will be excited. She wants Patrick Mahomes to win as many Super Bowls as he can, so that Tom Brady will no longer be the best quarterback in NFL history. That's the motivating, rooting reason for her. And I'm like, you know what? He doesn't have to win as many as Brady to be the best. Maybe he's just the best now.
There's no such thing as a GOAT. It doesn't. It's not a real. It doesn't exist. There's no GOATs.
No GOATs.
It's all in your head. It's a bar debate.
It is. It is.
It's a bar debate. It's not an official title. You don't get a ring for it. There's no banner. It's an opinion. And how do you pick over the different eras? How do you do it? I mean, it's I've had this discussion. I don't consider Michael Jordan the GOAT. I never have. I thought
no
Kareem
GOATs.
Jabbar had as many titles, the all-time leading scorer in NBA history until LeBron came along. He was my guy, and if Jordan was the GOAT because of titles, you got Bill Russell with almost twice as many. So,
right.
But it's a debate. That's the GOAT. So Tiger Jack, different equipment, different courses. Everybody's got their opinion, and that's what's great about it. I mean, the one thing about Mahomes is, Brady had the same coach his whole career, except for the very last one. Well, I'm not sure how long Andy Reid's going to go. And I think Andy Reid's a pretty big piece of this thing. So
He is.
but Mahomes is certainly good enough that they bring somebody else in there. He could probably do it then too. But we'll see. I mean, it's I think they'll win this time though. I think the Niners are. I think Shanahan will out coach himself. They should run the ball down their throat, and he'll probably try to throw it, and he'll put Brock Purdy in harm's way, and he'll get sacked a bunch of times or something, or throw an interception, but they should just line up and run down their throat. That's what Baltimore should have done. But when you play Mahomes, you panic. When Mahomes scores first, you panic.
Yeah.
The game plan goes out the window. Oh crap! Now we have to match this guy. So that's what he does. He plays with your head, and he'll play with their heads on Sunday.
No arguments to that one.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what's going to happen. All right, that is our
Okay.
podcast for this week. We'll be back, I think, next week. Yeah, to talk about something. Maybe Nebraska basketball wins a couple. Tom and Evan, I'm saying. Thanks for listening.